Not counting the Bonhoeffer Oratorio, I only wrote 2 real orchestra pieces. One of them is 360 Chords, which was premiered in 2006 by the Bayerischer Rundfunk Orchester in Munich, with Peter Rundle conducting. I want to tell you about this piece and about how the 360 chords were calculated. But before I try to explain anything, I want you to listen to the first page of music, those first 12 of the 360 chords, with only the strings playing. Try to imagine how the chords were calculated. You probably suspected a logical progression going on there, with the second 6 chords a variation of the first 6. But you probably don't understand much more than that unless you have read The Schillinger System of Musical Composition by Joseph Schillinger, first published in 1943, the year of the author's death. The basic idea for this piece all comes from Schillinger. So first I need to tell you something about this man and his music theory. Schillinger was born in 1895 in Kharkov, which was the capital of the Ukraine before that was moved to Kiev. He studied in the St. Petersburg Imperial Conservatory of Music, immigrated to the United States probably around 1930, where he had a studio with private students of composition and music theory. One of these was a man named Paul Starrett, whom I knew in New York. He talked a lot about the old man and how he taught music and stuff. Paul Starrett became an arranger for full-time for Radio City Music Hall, and he was just one example of many students that had studied with Schillinger. Some of them, you'll recognize their names. Especially George Gershwin, who studied with Schillinger exactly at the time when he was writing Porgy and Bess. But also Tommy Dorsey, Benny Goodman, Oscar Levant, and Glenn Miller were all students of Schillinger. I found his big book already as a teenager in a library in Colorado. The book was never appreciated much by my professors at Yale, but it made a lasting impression on me and has continued to have an effect on my composing. Today, I'll just show you a smaller Schillinger book published earlier in 1940 called Kaleidophone. I found this in a bin of used books somewhere a long time ago, and it's in pretty bad shape. But it gives a lot of the basic ideas of Schillinger, and much less than the big book, which was 800 pages or something. But the essential things are here. Schillinger had a lot of ideas about how to permute instruments in an orchestration and how to form special scales and interesting harmonic progressions and other things. But most important for me was the notion that all chords containing the same adjacent intervals are related. Let me begin with the first example that Schillinger gave in his book. So we're going to make 4-note chords, always with the same 3 intervals between the adjacent notes. And he chose for his example the major second, the minor third, and the 4th. That makes this 4-note chord. But now if we take major second and then the fourth and then the third, we get another chord. Now if we put the minor third in between the two lower notes, we get two other chords. And if we put the fourth in the bottom, we get two other chords. This seems to me very logical, and this makes a great group of chords. Let me play the 6 chords again. This story of groups of chords reminds me of one day when I was taking a lesson with Morton Feldman. That particular day, he had been playing with 5 different chords that he thought made a group. These are big dissonant chords like he was always working with, and it's not clear that exactly how they were related, but he thought they made a group, but he wasn't sure. He wanted to get an outside opinion. So he played these 5 chords, and we listened together. And I said, well, it seems to me that second chord has more minor seconds. It's more dissonant than the others. It's not quite the same feeling. He said, well, I think for me, that 4th chord is a little out of place because it has kind of an oriental feeling to me. As usual, Feldman wasn't interested in analyzing anything. He was purely intuitive. For him, no analysis could tell you anything about music. It was only the ear that could really determine things. As usual, I was just counting intervals and analyzing, and he was just listening. Was this difference because of all the theory classes I'd taken at Yale? Or was it just a difference in our personalities, our ways of hearing? I'm not sure. In any case, this never changed, and we remained very different in this sense. But I'm nonetheless very happy that I studied with Feldman and worked with him and listened with him, really listened the way Morton Feldman listened. So one day, thinking about the commission I had received to write a piece for the Bayerischer Rundfunk Orchester, I wanted to construct a big family of 7-note chords that would all contain the same 6 adjacent intervals in a nice Schillinger family. But which intervals? After playing around with this idea at the piano, I decided that those chords were going to be very dense anyway, with a lot of notes. And maybe it would be good to just avoid all the seconds and sevenths, the most dissonant intervals. And I could avoid also the tritones. And that would leave me just with the 2/3, the 2/6, the 4ths, and the 5ths. That would give me 6 intervals. Of course, I needed to figure out a sequence that would make sense with all these chords. And I wasn't sure how to do this, so I just turned on the Mathematica program and asked it to print out all the permutations of these 6 intervals. And plof, there I had it in a few seconds. Those numbers are hard to decipher, so let's look at that in music notation. There, look at that. What a surprise to find out that the first chord is a B-flat major chord. I didn't want to write tonal music, but I didn't want to disobey all the nice Mathematica logic that I had just taken. The F falls 3 times in each one of those chords. The top note, F, is the same as the bottom note, F, because those 6 intervals always add up to 3 octaves. You can find many other notes being repeated. And as we screen down, there's still a lot of B flat. Total possibilities of 6 factorial is 720. But that was going to make a longer list than anybody would want to listen to. And besides, I didn't really like the sounds when the small intervals, the thirds and the fourth, were in the bass, between the two bass notes. So I eliminated those. And that brought us down to 360 chords, cut the list in half, and brought the duration down to about 19 minutes, which seemed to me to be a reasonable length. Of course, as we screen down, we get further away from B flat major, and we're quite far away when we arrive at measures 217 to 222. But even in the final sequence, measures 355 to 360, most of the notes are still in the B flat major scale. Curiously, the whole piece never goes too far away from the B flat tonality, but it is hardly tonal music since there's no tonic dominant relationship and none of the usual major and minor chord changes. But there's a big orchestration problem here. First of all, it'll kill wind players if you ask them to play the same note for 19 minutes. And listeners are also happier if the orchestration moves around a bit. So it's better to shift the instruments around, especially since the top and bottom notes never change. So I divided the orchestra into 6 sections, 6 layers, and we change from one combination to another every 12 measures. We've already heard the first 2 sets of 6 chords, but now we're going to listen much later when all the orchestra comes together, and you can hear much more of the music. While you listen to this music, which will end our program, we'll show you various pages of the orchestration. Since the music is so slow and systematic, one can sometimes feel that it isn't changing much, but seeing the differences between one page of orchestration and another can help you appreciate the changes that are actually going on behind the surface similarity, all within this Schillinger group of chords with the same intervals between the adjacent notes. Enjoy.